Alright, so I want to talk about fighting game decision making because I think it's really important to understand like some of the core elements of making good decisions in fighting games. Mostly so that you can like learn for yourself. Like Melty Blood has 93 characters, and it's sometimes hard to get information about like a matchup for a specific character or like ask for advice about like what you're supposed to specifically do in some situations. But I think that all gets a lot easier if you have a really strong framework for how, like understanding how to make decisions, knowing, you know, this happened in this situation, what do I do better next time? Learning to break things down and figure out what you need to do better in a situation goes a lot smoother when you can break this idea down. So I think like the end game of fighting games looks something like trying to understand your opponent's intent, not just understand, but anticipate your opponent's intent, like what their plan is, and do something that beats their plan. Because you can't always know what exact thing they're going to do, but you can make some informed guesses about what they might do based on what they've represented and thus what you think your opponent wants, what they're looking for. But to start with breaking down how do I do that, I think it's important to understand like just raw decisions. So anything you do in a fighting game is a decision, and I'm just going to start off by talking about like one of the most basic decisions, like a very simple case, right? Run up DP. Generally frowned upon decision. Not something that people generally recommend, but like why do people not recommend this? Why is it a bad decision to run up DP? Why would people advise against this? So run up DP is something you can do, and it has things it beats and it has things it won't beat. I've gotten away with a lot of run up DPs, and not just Melty, but like other fighting games too, because run up DP will beat stuff. It'll beat someone who is pressing a button. If they press a button at the time when you run in and do your DP, you will invuln through their attack and you will hit them for it. If I record Nania, maybe 2B is a better example. If I record Nania just going like this, right? And I think, okay, Nania is about to just mash a button. I might be able to run up DP this. If I could time it. Let me reset this. There it goes. Run up DP will beat it. Oh, yo, what's up, Bears? Run up DP will beat me hitting my reversal at the timing of them pressing a button. And as you see from some of these hits, it's a counter hit, right? That is when run up DP will win. My opponent is delivering themselves to me, basically. When does run up DP lose? Well, as you already saw, when I mistime it, when I run into that 2B, and it just preempts me doing the DP. It'll lose to them just blocking. If the dummy, I don't even really need to show this, but if the dummy's set to guard, crazy recovery time. Every fighting game ever, you're going to get punished for that. And you know, this is a lot of recovery. Nania's got a lot of time to get just a full combo on me, right? I'm a sitting duck. So there's not a lot of situations where run up DP wins. And even if I win, honestly, Nania is kind of a bad example because his DP can be pretty rewarding in that it gives a good knockdown. But even if I'm right, all I really get is that DP hit, not a lot of damage. And if I'm wrong, I'm eating a lot more than 1.6k. Like, I'm against Nania right now, and I don't even know this character. Baby combo that I can figure out on the fly over 3k, right? Like, I'm eating about twice as much punishment as I would get reward if I'm right. So the risk reward is not favorable for this decision. If I make the choice to run up in DP, I'm not going to be rewarded very well, and I'm potentially going to be punished heavily. Thus, in a vacuum, we can call this a bad decision. But there's cases where it wins. If I see someone who's like just spamming a button, right? Maybe I will do that. Whoops. My execution continues to punish me. But like a few times in a row, I will hit on the dummy mashing 2B because I know they're gonna mash 2B. And thus I'm correct, right? But any decision you make, whether I'm right or wrong, if that hits, I now know, okay, this person really is just gonna mash 2B. right? Or they might be willing to mash 2B if they see me approach, or if we're at this range where I might run into it. Similarly, if I'm wrong, if Nania's quite literally just standing here, and I choose to run up DP if I could execute it, you can see how bad I am at consistently getting 6-2-3s. If we're like far and I'm wrong, Nania's sitting there, or if I set Nania to block, pretty rational decision. We're sitting full screen, not really a reason to be pressing, right? I am now going to get punished. But that also still tells me, okay, this Nania is not necessarily just mashing, right? I can't count on this person just pressing buttons because I'm close. They're not always going to be pressing when I'm at this range. They're playing kind of passively, right? There can also be the case where they're really preemptive. I'm going to swap characters to kind of show this a little bit. Let's go with an example with Kohaku, right? I'm going to set the dummy. I have a recording where Nani is going to do... He's just going to dash and DP at some point. Right? I might get hit because I'm playing too reactively, right? I can go under it. I can whiff and I can block it. I can get hit if I time it poorly. But no matter what happens, right? Whether I'm right or wrong as Kohaku, Nani is taking the information away that, oh, when I'm sitting at roughly this range, Kohaku wants to use her big button, and she's going to try and poke me out. That's data. That can inform my next decision. Whether I'm right and that DP hits because they chose to press the button, or I'm wrong and my approach gets stuffed out, that tells me that Kohaku, when she's sitting at this range, might be willing to press a button against me, right? I'm gonna reset the dummy so I can create more space. Whoops. So, I know that Kohaku now is likely to make the decision trying to challenge me when I am spaced out. Because she's got this really big button. 2C, moves her slightly forward, hits pretty far. If I'm trying to move on the ground, I'm very likely to get hit by this, right? I'm sitting like half screen, and with the way it moves me closer, it only takes a few of these after the pushback from block before I'm right back in, right? So again, going back to our goal of I want to understand what my opponent wants and how to beat it. From the attempt to DP, I see that Kohaku might be willing to check me with 2C. Kohaku pretty uniquely has this big 2C. If I swap to Nania for a second, Nania 2C doesn't go quite as far. It moves him forward. It does actually take him pretty far. Not the best example, right? And he can convert off it if I have more than one hand. I'm holding L3 so I can control him for a second. True, you can just decide to win. If you know that this player is going to do this, you can decide to win. If they're as ignorant as just pressing 2C. But again, we're talking about decision making, right? What we see is Kohaku just pressing 2C. But this decision could be a number of things, right? This decision could be, I'm Kohaku, I'm pressing my big button because I have it. This decision could also be, this is Nania, he's got a fast dash. I'm going to try and check him on it, right? Or this decision could be, I'm really far, I've got a big button. I'm just going to press it and see what we do, right? So the next step, if you're Nana and you're thinking, all right, how do I deal with Kohaku 2C? I don't know what Kohaku player I'm asking, right? Scarlet's been playing a bunch of different characters. I'm not really playing this character. Wiseblood hasn't been super active lately, right? Also, like, there's a lot of other things this character can do. Oh, like, I avoid 2C one time. This button's coming out. That's swatting me for jumping in, right? How do I discern what to do? How do I make a better decision than I'm just going to run up DP or I'm going to run up and try to check this? Well, if I know that the opponent wants to just press 2C, let me swap roles for a second here. And this is going to be another weird one because Kohaku moves herself forward. I might have to adjust my positioning a lot. Alright, I'm going to set up a recording real quick of Kohaku just 2C, 2C, 2C. Or you know what, maybe I'll reset it. I'll do just jump. 2C so that I can have some amount of anticipation for her doing it. I'll leave it for a second, right? If I think Kohaku's just going to try and check me on my approach, maybe she's going to check me with 2C. I've got a couple options, right? I can go for that run-up DP, which I failed because I'm getting stuffed out. I can try to preempt it. Also pretty risky. But it can work. Or I can try to IAD in. That could potentially get me a really big punish, right? All of these have different risk reward. If Kohaku is standing here doing nothing, and I IAD, I can get hit by 5A and tear. If I choose to press a button, she can wait and 2C and punish me for pressing that button. Let me see if I could show what that looks like with the dummy recording, right? Wow, I'm preempting that way too hard. Maybe this button's too cheap. But like, I'm getting punished here for pressing 2B to check too early. I'm wrong about the timing, right? And if I choose to just sit here and do nothing, even if I pick a really passive option, like I'm going to dash block, right? I cover a little bit of space, and eventually I get here. But what if I choose to dash block and Kohaku just decides this person's playing really passive? I'm going to pull up. There's no way I can really know for sure what the Kohaku's doing. All I know is I've seen Kohaku be willing to press 2C. So I'm trying to come up with how do I check Kohaku on doing 2C. In a vacuum, I might just ask, what do I do about Kohaku 2C? But there's too many things. I just gave like 3 possibilities, right? But if I reframe it as this Kohaku player is making a decision to press 2C to check me. That's a decision that'll check me on my approach if I'm not careful. Things it beats. Checks me on my approach if I'm not careful. Checks me walking back. And it forces me to block if I'm just sitting there. Things it loses to, getting preempted, IAD'd over, right? If I start to think about why I'm seeing the decision to 2C, why I'm seeing the action there, that helps me, as a Nania player who doesn't know what Kohaku is going to do, make a more educated decision, decide how I, as the player, want to leverage my risk reward, well, how I want to go about trying to solve this problem. What do I do about Kohaku 2C? And how you choose between, do I go for preempt? Do I go for IAD? Do I go for dash block? There's no really right answer. Someone might say, yeah, you dash block because there's no risk. You're going to like at least block. You'll close the space. You eventually get in their safest option. But then as soon as you go for that dash block and Kohaku pulls up and now you're holding Kohaku pressure, you kind of regret that decision. This is where like expression comes into play. You have to accept that when you make a decision, there's going to be things you beat. There's going to be things that you don't beat. And you have to take every interaction, every outcome, and try to derive some sort of conclusion for it. You don't have to necessarily be like, Kohaku's pressing 2C because she's trying to check me for sure. She definitely just wants to abuse this big button and hit you. Because maybe she does this the first time, and next time she's waiting here and goes for this. Just swats you out the air for that IAD. Is ready with the 5A because she's conditioned you to IAD over it, is ready to anti-air you. You don't necessarily know, but even if you choose to IAD and you get hit by it, that still tells you something. Alright, Kohaku 2C'd, maybe she's trying to condition me and look for the IAD, trying to set up a situation where I really want to go in, and now I get punished for it. So now, I've got new ways to make decisions. I've got a better understanding of my opponent's intent, so now I've got new data to form a plan to beat that intent. We've gotten back to our original goal. There's a lot of word soup, so to backtrack a little bit, Kohaku presses 2C, shows that she might be willing to check me. It could mean a lot of things. I make a decision to try and beat 2C, or beat stuffed out approach. Win or lose, this is more information to inform, for me, what Kohaku's plan might be. And if I start to understand, okay, Kohaku did 2C to condition me, we'll follow one path. Kohaku did 2C to condition me to jump, and now is ready to 5A me to anti-air. Gets a full conversion. Now I'm thinking, how do I beat Kohaku being really ready to make me approach, using her big range to keep me out? This feels unwinnable. This character's broken. She's got big buttons. She does tons of damage. She's got a great 5A for hitting me out of there. All true things. So how do I start to solve this problem? Kohaku players can't really give me great answers right now. They're not all online. How do I start to solve this problem? Make better decisions. I've now taken away that Kohaku is looking for me to approach. So what I can start doing, especially if I have Nania movement, I'm thinking, I'm going to try to feint my approach. 5A comes out. I don't really have a good recording to set up. I don't have good match footage to show this, but imagine that Kohaku's about to do 5A, looking for me to jump because I just dealt with 2C here, right? All of a sudden, 5A whiffs, and now I'm closer, right? Or I dash block because she's looking for me to approach, right? She's not preemptively coming up and punishing me for dash blocking. Now I'm closer. I've started to solve the problem of what do I do about Kohaku 2C by breaking it down into potential things that what Kohaku might do tells me about what the Kohaku player wants. And this is fighting games. This is why I frame this as fighting in decision making, but in Melty Blood. Is fighting games are about understanding what the other person wants and coming up with a plan about that. Kohaku's got a billion things she could do here. She's got really good big buttons. She could even full send with one of these, super anti-air me if I go into the air at all, right? She can go with one of these to stop me from doing a crazy run-up shield. She can just sit like this, or like this, or like this to have a more active ground check to catch me on the ground. Lots of things this character can do. She can even sit here and wait and use this to try and stop me. But if I'm starting to try and get the perspective of Kohaku trying to keep me out, I can start forming different plans like jump fast fall, dash block, dash button, dash 2B. This not only a dash 2B goes so far, like look at that. Almost full screen. That's making me block? That's crazy. But all this to sort of say, when you're looking at footage, when you're figuring out how do I deal with this option? What do I do about Kohaku 2C? What do I do about this Kohaku champion? What do I do as Nania? How do I approach as Nania? The ways you can start breaking that down and starting to find these answers for yourself is by, whether you're looking at footage, whether you're looking at the matchup in a vacuum, starting to think of these possibilities, what they might suggest about what the player wants, and finding solutions. Because the possibilities are infinite. You're never going to know for sure, like, okay, if Kohaku's on screen, she's obviously going to want to keep me out. She's obviously going to pick these options to do it. You'll never know. If I'm playing Kohaku, I could choose to run all the way up and just throw you, right? I could be like, people love blocking Kohaku, I'm going to run up throw. But, like, this is how you start to solve problems for yourself. Break things down a little bit more from just be right and make better decisions over time. That was like a lot of yapping and not exactly what everything I intended to talk about. I literally got my notebook here. I took notes before coming back and booting up. Oh, let me just go over another example. Because again, there's a lot of ways that this could go wrong, right? Character on the other end doesn't really matter. So if I know that the other player is trying to understand my plan, right? A lot of times people will hear things like, oh, you're too predictable. There's a couple forms of predictability, right? Layer 1 of predictability is you do the same option every time. If I'm playing Vichy on offense, and I'm always going for my plus frame reset, that's one version of doing the same thing a lot. Someone blocking this now knows, or you know, let me swap to a better character. Let me pick top tier character again. If I'm Arc and I'm in your face, and I'm guilty of autopiloting pressure like this, I'm gonna start losing because there's things that charge Rekka beats. It beats someone blocking, it beats someone mashing, and I say beats because this plus 10 guard damage will start to add up a lot too. It's not really looking like it now, but if I combine that with 5C, already we're getting into bad territory with this. Off lots of plus frames and guard break. But if every time I pull up as Arc I'm doing this, that's one form of predictability. The other form of predictability is always going for the same kind of risk reward. If I'm always, for example, if I'm coming back from low life, right? It's hard to set that up in training mode, but assume I'm coming back from low life. If my decision, because I'm coming back from low life, is I'm always going to play really safe and run tight block strings, or I guess that's a bad example, but I'm not going to like overextend very much. because I have low life, then my opponent will start to take advantage of the fact that, oh, you're always going to play safe when you're low life. I'm going to beat that. So how do I start to mask my intent more and thus make better decisions that way? Counter my opponent's reads a little bit preemptively. Oh, well, everyone tells me I'm getting so predictable. I don't really know how else to run pressure. This is such a good option. Why would I not do it? Arc's got so many ways to reset plus frames. They all lose CEX shield. How do I start to make my offense less predictable, be less predictable as a player, right? A lot of this is where fighting games start to scale with experience. It's understanding better what your different choices beat and lose to and what your opponents might take away from that. Going back to this example, because this character is really strong, it's really tempting to want to run this. And when I started off on this character, my pressure was like entirely autopilot this string, right? Just like I'm trying to get my charge Rekka off as much as possible was my autopilot. How do I start to change my intent when I'm pressing these 5As? Literally by understanding what options will throw off my opponent based on what this beats. This beats block, this beats match. So if my opponent starts to think, I'm totally okay blocking, scouting out the pressure reset, figuring out what to do from there, that's where I will start mixing in, right? Oh, I'm trying to, or this also loses to jump out. If Kohaku jumps out after this, the startup of Charge Rekka is so slow that an immediate jump out will get out. Or backdash. So if my opponent's reading, okay, you're going to read me blocking. Your plan is to keep me blocking, reset me, run down my guard bar, condition me to block or something so you can start getting this going. Right? I can mask my intent in doing this on offense by changing up my offense based on the understanding that going for this beats block and mash and loses to jump out. My opponent might be content because they're blocking this, waiting until they have a chance to jump out. So if I start to shift my offense to this, even something as simple as, right? That now has more of a chance of stopping jump out because this character's 2C is broken. It's going to hit you really high trying to jump out if you jump out too late. And this on a vacuum, bad pressure string. As Arc, when I do 2C right here and I'm this far, resetting my pressure is now an overcommitment. You're safe to mash if I redash. If I do this, well, not right away because you'll get counter hit by it. But once I'm here, you have options again. So doing this in pressure on paper looks bad. But even if it looks like a bad decision, I've done some guard bar damage. I've done a little bit of chip. And now I've masked my intent a little bit more in starting to run this pressure. You can be less certain in your decision to just immediately jump out because I've shown something that will beat jump out, the thing that beats this option. So making decisions to become less predictable, ways you can start solving your problems of how do I play pressure better? How do I make my offense less easy to just down back or less easy to just jump out of? It's about breaking down what decisions am I making that lose to jump out, lose to down back, or fail to beat these things. And how can I then leverage my other options that might help beat these things so that my opponent can't feel as secure in their plan of I'm just going to down back or I'm just going to jump out. And like that's the basis of forming better decisions and breaking down decision making. It's a lot of what goes into my analysis and commentary personally as well. Because you can kind of apply this to every fighting game. Autopiloting the same block stream. Yeah, no, that's super real. That's exactly my experience playing C-Arc too. I did the exact same thing where like I would start to play better players and I realized, oh, I'm literally just autopiloting this all the time. No wonder I'm not opening everyone up. Or I'll just start going like this. And lately I've started to realize that my habit, and I'm gonna like kind of tell people how to beat me here is I will do this rebeat. I'm going to do low into instant rebeat a lot. And when I get far, I'm pretty much always going to press 2C. So people will down back. And when I get to roughly this range, they'll mash because I'm either going to do something that's overcommitment and losing to mash, right? Or if they block just long enough, because they haven't seen me start to run up, they know that they're out. And because I'm always doing something that only beats someone trying to mash, I'm failing to open people up and my reset attempts are getting poked out. And this is like potentially variable, right? Like I can change the rhythm at which I do this a lot, but I haven't changed my intent, which is to stop immediate action. So people who are content to wait until I push myself to a range where now I get mashed out, they're beating me every time I'm not opening them up. KFL 10-0'd me the other day off of this in the mirror. But no, that's super real. Like changing your pressure by just changing the timing is so big. And that's like one of the under discussed things with rebeat, because like everyone knows rebeat is your tool for changing your timing. But how do you do that? When do you do that to change up your timing is really big. Like you play C Alco, right? Or is it H Alco? I think you play H Alco, right? You were on Melt Your Blood stream, I think, the other day. Something that you'll see from Ryder a lot is like just the change of timing in when these buttons come out, because it changes when someone can feel comfortable in jumping out. Even something as simple as that versus going like this immediately might make someone more prone to being thrown, because if you do this, they're like, oh shit, I gotta block because this beats anything but block, right? Pull my quick stagger, pull myself back in, keep it a little tight, make it a little iffy with that 5A if I'm gonna do something like go for a 5C to catch an immediate jump out. So then the next time, if I do something as vanilla as that, throw is way more likely to work because you're conditioned to look for something like this, right? And as you know, that throw is a really good situation for every out there. And that's why rebeat is so scary on especially a lot of H-moons with approaching buttons like this. I haven't played this character in a minute, and feeling how much this 5V pulls me in is so crazy, actually. Having moves like that is so huge, and that's also the nice advantage of 5A, 6A is a lot of time, is the way that they pull you back in. Yeah, no, this button is feeling... This makes me want to play this character a little bit more, I can't lie. That, just like going 5A, 5B, or 5A, 6A, 5B, that feels nice. That feels really good, actually. I like that as a way to, like, throw off timing with stay in. That's the kind of stuff that's, like, really worth breaking down and being like, okay, how can I change up my rebeats, especially leverage my approaching buttons to make someone unsure of when they can jump out? And this is something that you'll see talked about a lot, but the important part of this is breaking it down to, my opponent's plan is to wait until they can jump out. Or my opponent's blocking right now because they're looking for me to push myself far out to reset. And when someone's thinking one of those things, if they're looking for, okay, I'm looking to block out until I can reset, again, 5 AAA throw might work because it defies their expectations a little bit. It's hard to cover everything. I was telling someone about this idea the other day, and they were saying similarly, like, this gets a lot harder when someone's really good at rotating their options, which is super true. That's exactly why, like I mentioned earlier, just changing up your options, changing up your timing is just really big. It makes it a lot harder. But again, you still solve your problem a little bit if you're focused on looking for, like, why your opponent is doing what they're doing. Because, like, as Vishion, I had to do that a lot. Because one thing about this character, I could be plus, but if I want to do anything for my plus frames, what are my options? I check you with 2B, or I pull up and I do this, right? Both of these lose to low shield. And if you know that I have these options, and you look for me to pull up, you can go for shield and beat most of the things I can do, or take a throw that does pretty good damage for a throw, but just a little bit of damage in general, right? Play is a little bit linear, because a lot of these things are still going to shield becomes a strong RPS option. It beats my safest option, right? Beats potentially my other safest option if it's low shield. Having a framework for looking for these couple things gives you a really strong edge against this character. So if I want to start opening people up, I have to start where even if this whiffs, this sometimes counter poke stuff and just throwing stuff off can change things a lot. True, Vaki throw is so funny. Vaki throw feels like a joke to me, I can't lie. Having played a lot, I mean, most of my time is on H, but I know it's not that different. I feel like the design idea behind this throw is because, oh, she like heals herself a little bit, so it increases the life difference by what, like 200 more or something. I don't even know how much she heals. It changes the difference a little bit, which I feel like comes in clutch in like once a year. Like very infrequently. Maybe it gives you the edge in time or something like that. Yeah, right. It definitely feels like a decision of we can't really give her that much, which fair. I don't think anyone's gonna complain about Vaki not having that much more than she's got right now. Especially this moon, your character does not need that, but also I definitely feel you. Especially because I know you like going for that throw. You throw a lot more than other Valkyries, which I think is good too. Because there's so many times when I'm so content holding down back, and you force me to have to respect that you're gonna throw, and I'm more prone to wanting to check you on that. Because even though this isn't that scary, I'm like, fuck, now I gotta throw. Or now I gotta watch for throw. Which is funny because this kind of goes back to the original point too, of if like Vaki is going like this, you can also start to read that intent as like a refined understanding of the game could be like, okay, well, Vaki's doing this because she wants me to look for the throw, because throw is low reward, but all the other stuff is high reward. So if I'm looking for the throw, I'm more likely to get hit by other stuff, and that might sharpen my defense up to actually not eating shit as much, because now I'm looking for you to go for other stuff since you've thrown me once. And I really like this idea because it's actually something that I feel like a lot of these fighting game concepts sound very tied to high level play, but this is actually so relevant in all levels of play. That's true. She does getting the health back is kind of nice. I feel like the real deficit is only so difference making sometimes. You know what I mean? Because like actually, you know what? Vaki's a really good example for this too. When you're watching like low level play, a lot of what characterizes the difference between low level play and high level play is a less refined understanding of the risk reward. It's like not knowing as much about what the tools do or all the details of the situation or the implications of the game state, like not knowing I've got 50 seconds, I can actually come back in this amount of time. Or maybe you're playing HMech and it's like, dang, I really got to start moving at 50 seconds because if I don't get this hit soon, it's not happening. Even though you got good damage, getting that hit's going to be hard, right? Low level play, you'll see a lot of Vakis play their offense very normally like this. A lot of the bad Vakis will play very much like they're just going to go like this because they're going to play around, I've got to hit you, not properly assessing the risk of going for throw when you have Vaki health in a game with 8 frames of throw protection. But what separates the way you go for throws, for example, from other players is knowing that you have this, and I've seen that over time you go for that throw a lot less because it's so risky, and you've definitely started to tap a lot more into this character's just got a billion other things to do, and then I see the throws still hit people in bracket because it circles back to, oh, she's got all of these things, I can go for the throw. Which, yeah, she definitely is pretty timer scammy. But I'm more referring to, sorry, I'm speaking very vaguely because I've put some time into the character, from the fact that when you're playing a character who's as slow and has these slow buttons as she does, if you don't start trying to force your opponent into an unfavorable situation soon, you're simply not going to have the time to, because she does not move fast. And your opponent is just going to run away from you. Yeah, no, I'm just describing it from the perspective of someone doesn't really get what we're talking about here, you know. 50 seconds left as HMech coming back from a deficit. Very different than a lot of other characters, because if I want to get from here to here and Kohaku's content to run away, I gotta really start moving. versus Kohaku in this situation. If Kohaku's on a pixel and HMech is full health, you get one hit, you're doing 6k. You're able to run that back real easy. Was Kohaku in this situation? Yeah, it's so sad. But like, it kind of ties back into the conversation from the other day of like, oh, this character is slow, so I've got to remember that there's these weaknesses. All this kind of folds into like different ways to consider all the things you're seeing on the screen as well as your own character's options to like learn to figure out how to make better decisions for yourself. Which actually, I used to play this character when I started, as I know you know, Thorn, but I stopped because this character, I was autopiloting this too much. And I would be like, what do I do against this character in this matchup? And I couldn't figure it out. And part of that is because this is so likely to just hit people who aren't ready for it because it covers so much space that like I would just start defaulting to it. And I was not problem solving. I would have a problem and I'm like, maybe they won't be ready for J2C. I just start going, woo. And it works just enough times that I'll beat people who are also less experienced and not ready for it. And anyone who's good is going to be like, oh, you're Len. You're going to want a cannonball and beat me for it. So I only started to really break down, like, how do I make better decisions when I swapped off a character that me personally, I kept wanting to just, like, do one thing as. And it was preventing me personally from problem solving. Not to say that'll happen for everyone, especially with this character. This character's so variable. She's got so much stuff. But yeah, just like, again, to emphasize the importance of kind of breaking down what you're seeing on screen. I kind of wanted to talk about this because I saw people talking in LFGNA about, like, asking questions and stuff. And, like, oh, it's hard to get help sometimes, which is very true. But, like, I think if you understand stuff like this, then, like, you don't have to be as reliant on, like, oh, I need help to solve my problems. I should play this character again. This character's so fun. Even though I very clearly might be bad at her. Doing the Len Fuzzy filtered me back when I was actually playing this character. I couldn't do it, and I was like, if I can't do the Fuzzy, I should just play another character. Which I would kind of stand by, honestly. That is enough yapping for me, though. I'm gonna swap this and say playing Melty. You want to play? True, actually, honestly. Oh yeah, when's your controller, your fixed controller coming in? You mentioned that it was soon, right?